Hello, it's me again. Hooray! I am John. I'm part of Actual Play UK, and we're once again delving into the realms of using OBS and other various programs to do some actual play streaming. What that actually means is going to be me sat here for an hour, maybe. It was 2 hours last time. That was a surprise to everybody. It'll be going through all of the various different elements, essentially how I would set up a stream for Actual Play UK. I'm not saying it's necessarily the best way, but I am saying that this is the way that I have found it to be best for me at the very least. Quite nicely, like there are various other people out there who are doing this same setup. And it seems to be working. So obviously the main purpose of this is to make sure that we're able to, as actual play streamers or performers who are recording and then putting that out onto something like YouTube, we want to make sure that the process that we've got with all of this is as easy and streamlined and as hassle-free as possible. So because this is going on YouTube, mash that like button. Yeah, great. Subscribe, do things like that. Okay, to give you, if there are other people who are watching this for the first time, because I know that the OBS 101, it's a bit more basic, just describing how OBS works and how to set it up and things like that for specifically actual play streaming. This time, it's going to be going a little bit more into specifics. But if this is your first time joining us because of that reason, you know, oh, I don't need to know about OBS, because I know about OBS. Again, my name is John. I've had a fair few years of experience doing audio engineering, which is why I keep on hitting my mic. I know all about that. Don't do that, John. There's also a fair amount of experience I have in video and animation. So, yes, make of that what you will. Right, okay, let's start. So you should be able to see my wonderful window here in OBS. Once again, we have my mic coming in. I can adjust that volume. I've got filters set up on there, which obviously we learnt about last time. But let's have a little bit of a think about this for a moment. What makes a good stream? You could say that it is a mixture of things. Obviously, it's your performance. It's the game itself. Yeah, of course, absolutely, 100%. We're all performers, and we all enjoy mucking about and putting on stupid voices and stuff like that. Obviously, you want to have that game completely separate, really, from what is happening with the technical side of it. You want to be as little bothered by the technical side as you can. That's one of the reasons for Actual Play UK, so that I can go and make sure I'm sat there and I'm running that side of things so people can just enjoy the performance and put on a good game. This said, there are going to be times when, you know, you are running the stream and you are running the game and you've got all of this other stuff on your shoulders and no one needs that. So we have to make sure that we're prepped. So we've got various elements that we have to make sure we're prepped for. Obviously, we need to make sure that OBS is set up in a right kind of way. We need to make sure that for example, Twitch is set up in the right kind of way. But bringing it down to your kind of basic level, you want to make sure that cameras are good and you want to make sure your audio is good as well. I believe a wise man once said, shit in, shit out. So try to make sure that your performers, whoever they may be, have a reasonably good setup. You want to make sure they've got in-ears or headphones so that you haven't got cross-talk going on with the speakers and then the mic, because that's horrible. You want to make sure they're in a reasonable room, which isn't super echoey. How do you do that? Well, you'd try to run a test beforehand if you can. If they are in a quite an echoey room, see if they can put up some kind of something behind them. Usually, big white rooms are horrible. Anyway, with lots of glass, horrible, because you get lots of reverb and it makes it a bit horrible to obviously have your audio come over that. Interestingly, in video, you might think that the visuals are probably the most important thing. They're not. It's actually probably audio. People will switch off like a YouTube channel or something like that if the audio sucks. So if you're using a headset or something like that, at least try to make sure that it's of a reasonable quality. You don't want crackling, you don't want stuff like that. So be careful about that. This isn't to say you have to fork out like 500 quid for that. You can quite easily have a very nice setup for like a couple of hundred quid. Honestly, there's no kind of me pushing a particular brand or anything like that. You could do it with an SM58, which is a live mic. It's fine. SM58 and a Focusrite Solo, you'd be all right. You're not going to suck. You're not going to suck. I prefer things like that over stuff like Behringer, because Behringer doesn't last brilliantly, but that's a kind of personal choice. Usually the sound quality is a lot lower because you get what you pay for. Anyway, soapbox off of it. So yes, visuals, so camera, really important, but get your audio sorted out as much as possible. Today I'll be going into a little bit about the filters that you might be putting onto the audio. But for the most part, I'll point you in a particular direction of some kind of audio things, because you don't need to go deep into it. It's just understanding what each of these things perhaps are. So, going back to the camera, I'm using a DSLR at the moment, which is a digital camera that obviously it's got a great lens on it and it's worth quite a lot of money. That just so happens to be what I've got. If you have a standard like webcam or something like that, that's actually fine. You can muck about with it in filters to increase contrast and make sure that it's looks a bit nicer. But on top of that, you can also do things behind you that are going to improve stuff quite a bit. So yeah, cameras are important, but think about your lighting as well. There is a technique called 3-point lighting, which is worth thinking about. So you have a key light, which is going to be your light right in front of you, so something like that. So usually with a key light, you don't necessarily... Okay, you got the ring lights. That's fine, but it's there to produce a particular look. And it's kind of taken over stuff like Instagram, TikTok, and things like that, because it's also called like a beauty light. And that can look great, but obviously we're performers and you might want something a little bit more kind of interesting going on. So with lighting, usually you want to put something like kind of 3/4 to the side. And doesn't need to be super bright, but you just want to be able to have a bit of kind of interesting lighting going on. So you've got a little bit of shadowing going on one side of the face. If you look at like most films, they tend to film things with a light coming slightly from the side, and they'll actually film a lot more on the dark side. The reason being is because it makes the human face look a lot more interesting. So think about where you're going to place your key light. The second light that's actually, I would say, is quite important for doing things like actual play that people don't even ever think about is actually a rim light or hair light. What that does is it's a light. You can see there's a lamp just behind me, this thing. Right, I'm going to flick that on. You can't see it very well because it's daylight at the moment for me. But you can see there's this light behind me. And what it's actually doing is it's shining a light at the back of my head, essentially, which is the best place to shine my light. Shows up my best feature. So what that's actually doing is it's creating separation from me from the background, which is actually, it's surprisingly important, because otherwise, certainly if you have a dark background and you have dark hair or something like that, or you know, equivalent, you may be wearing a hat, so you want to see that hat. A hair light or a rim light like this is actually quite useful. Again, you'd probably put that slightly to the side. This has been moved recently, so. But you probably want to put that very slightly to the side, but kind of pointing towards the back of you. That's going to create separation between you and the background. Then it's actually quite nice to also have some lighting behind you. This isn't part of the three-point light thing. The three-point light thing is usually you've got your key light, you've got your hair light, and you've got what they call a fill light. And that just kind of softens shadows on the other side. So if you've got your key light there, you have a smaller, less powerful light to the opposite side of you. And it just fills out those shadows very, very slightly. So rather than what they call Rembrandt lighting, which is where you have very strong shadows, it just softens it a little bit. Obviously, we don't all have three-point lighting, so this is fine. This is just a look. This is just a crappy little lamp. Knocking things up. There you go. It's just that I'm using at the moment. I have got other lights here, but I'm just using it for effect. So there you go. I'm just turning it on and turning it off. Also, take care not to overblow your lighting. So that might be a little bit washed out. So if you're able to adjust things like your settings on your camera, so your exposure and stuff like that, you can sometimes do that on webcams as well if they're a decent webcam. But just be careful about doing that. Sometimes you can put it to auto and it should kind of follow what's going on. Certainly if you do something during the day, lighting will change as well. So auto is okay, but you might find that if you're cutting stuff later, you're going to have different lighting qualities as you go through. Slightly less of an issue for what we're doing, but it's worth considering. So you got your hair light, you've got your key light, and then perhaps if you're feeling really flash, you've got your fill light. That can all help, but I also like to put, as I was just saying, a kind of effect light, if you will, or a light that you're essentially got in your background. You can't see it that well, but I've just got a lamp here with a green filter over the top of it, and it's just going up onto this. When it's a bit darker, it kind of washes out the green, and then I've got a contrasting. This is a blue light that's my hair light, so it's that contrast between the lights. Stuff like that can work really nicely, and your camera doesn't necessarily have to be super high quality. It's just nice having that difference in light quality on camera, and it can instantly make your stream look so much better. Just go look at like YouTubers who are like playing games and stuff like that. They've got tons and tons of like LEDs and crap like that all over the walls, and that's because it looks interesting. You know, what I have at the moment, I've just got like a Kallax with a load of boxes in the back with a load of crap in them, which is what happens when you're an artist and a top photographer and things like that. You just get stuff, but that looks better than just a pile of washing. So think about stuff like that. Make your background, part of your personality if you can. It will help. It will allow people to understand what you are as a performer as well. Okay, did go into frame rates and things like that in the last one, but just as a reminder, we are running OBS theoretically in 30 frames per second. That means if your camera is running at a different frame rate, it's gonna look a little bit shonky. It might not kind of fit together brilliantly. So typical frame rates are maybe 24 or 25 frames per second or 30 frames a second. If you're going up to 60, that's okay, but you're going to look like Saving Private Ryan or an action scene from Fast and Furious, because it's very aggressive looking in terms of the look of it. Very hyper-realistic. And we don't necessarily want that. We want something that's actually smooth and comfortable to look at. So go for 30 frames a second on pretty much everything you do. You can't necessarily adjust what other people have their frame rates at, but theoretically, pretty much everybody is going at around about 30 frames a second anyway. So if you sort yourself out as much as you can, hopefully everybody else will kind of fall in line with that in some way or other. Okay, so going very briefly back onto audio. Hopefully camera stuff kind of makes a bit of sense there. So audio, so you should all be able to see that that's popped up. We've got our different audio here. So I'm just using my John mic at the moment. I got my monitor off because I don't want to hear myself. I'm monitoring myself in a slightly different way. What we have here, let's see, let's go to my filters. So my filters, so I've got a filter on here, which is, it's a VST plugin. I've got a few different plugins here. These are not things you desperately need. I just so happen to use something called Isotope Alloy 2. I'll just open that. Okay. So you should be able to see that. Now, here we see a pretty standard setup for actual play. Now, I'll kind of briefly let you know what all of these do. So we've got, if you think of this as a signal chain, so this is where the signal starts. It then goes to here, then 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 it's out. You won't. The people that are on the stream side of it, you won't be able to hear anything. But I'm going to just change that. I'm going to bypass that, and then recording, you'll be able to hear the difference. Now, what that's actually doing is you got your EQ on there. I've EQ'd this in such a way that it's kind of got a rich and warm sound. This here, this is my waveform, this thing that's jiggling around, and this is my EQ that I'm using. In terms of what you can do in OBS, you can put in VST plugins from different manufacturers, and OBS will actually incorporate that into your effect setup. So it will come up here, and you'll have a whole bunch of different effects in there. Now, I have set up my, so we've got all of these kind of presets that we've got here that I've got set up. I've actually tried to make this as easy as possible, and I've got an Actual Play UK starter here. So when I click onto that, it sets everything up so that I'm not having to worry about this every single time I set up a track for a new person, because Actual Play, the way that Actual Play works, obviously, is we try to get as many new people as possible. So if, for example, Jeff from Best Podcast in the World decides to join the stream, I know that I need to set this up prior to us even going live. I've got my rough EQ in there, which is usually going to be something like this. I've got my dynamic set up, my de-esser and my limiter all set up, and then I adjust that to whatever their mic setup is. If I've got a really basic setup, then that's great. So we start with EQ. That you don't. Something to bear in mind actually is when you're EQing stuff, try to think of it in terms of you're taking out the frequencies you don't want rather than putting in frequencies you do want, because this here, it's got a little dB, that is volume essentially. And what I'm doing is I'm reducing the volume of these particular frequencies. And I know it does look like a big old curve there, but what it's actually doing is it's a very soft curve, taking out some of the slightly harsher mid frequencies, a little bit on the top here as well. So hopefully it's kind of got that rich radio kind of sound to it. But to also achieve that, I'm going to jump over to dynamics. Right, okay, so this is a compressor and a gate. So to really briefly explain what these are, a gate is essentially, think of it as a gate in a fence. And when you have volume that's loud enough, it jumps over that gate. But if it's quiet, it won't get past that gate. So what you're actually doing is you're saying, right, the gate is not letting any audio through if it's quiet. So for example, if you have a fan noise or something like that from your computer, it's nice to have a gate on there perhaps so that you know that the room noise is not coming through until I'm talking, at which point it opens that gate and allows the volume through. So you can see here, if I'm quiet for a second, I know, amazing. So that level there, so that's signal level. That's my basic signal level coming through there. And you can see there's kind of a line. So this is the threshold that I've put my gate at. And in terms of most other plugins, let me just add. So the plugins that you get with OBS in general, they're okay. They're all right. I do actually use some of them anyway. But let's put a noise gate in there. So they just don't have a visual kind of vavoom to them. They're just a bit kind of, oh yeah, look, it's a slider. I work quite visually, so I do like stuff like the isotope plugins because it shows you what's going on, right? So have a play with things like this. You'll see what's actually going on when you're monitoring yourself, and you talk and you can hear what's going on. And then if you're a bit quieter, try recording it back, things like that. So what we've got here, we've got that's the point that it's kind of sensitivity really. It's at what point it's closing, it's what point it's opening the gate, and then things like attack time, it's how quickly it's opening and how quickly hold time is, and release time. They relate to the length of time that it's actually kind of dipping off. So I'll get rid of that. Remove. Yes, I do want to remove them. Okay. So I've got a gate here. Compression. Now, compression is your secret weapon in doing any kind of actual play stuff. Most people in actual play don't tend to think about stuff like compression. Compression is literally kind of how it sounds. What you're doing is you have a waveform. You have this waveform here. And what you're doing is, if you're loud, it compresses that volume down so it's not overly loud. And it's bringing up the quiet. There are a couple of different types of compression. There's compression and expansion, but what's happening is it's squeezing overall. It's squeezing that audio source a bit. I'll just move that there. So yeah, it's squeezing the audio source, and it's allowing you to have a consistent volume as you go through. So, and the thing about actual play stuff is that most performers, they're going to be doing stuff so that they're performing, right? So they might be particularly loud at certain points and particularly quiet at others. And that's not just mic technique. That's not just moving backwards and forwards from the mic. It's also massively to do with compression. The reason that a radio presenter sounds the way they do is usually because of the compression that they have on their voice. So some people consider compression a little bit of a dark art, but I'm not going to get into all of that because it's insane. So I am going to put this, I'm going to put this in the chat anyway, and I'm going to put it in the YouTube. But there's quite a nice little sort of a cheat sheet. It's not really a cheat sheet. It just explains how compression works properly. Where are we? Yeah, it's going to. There we go. I'm just gonna send that over to the chat. So that essentially what it does is it will give you a. Oh, why is it not working? Let me go on here. Let me see if that will actually. There we go. Okay. Yeah, it will go through everything. It will allow you to understand a little bit more about compression and what attack time, release time, threshold, and ratio is. I would strongly recommend having a look at this. And it might seem a little bit like a dark art, but it's honestly one of the most important things that you can learn as somebody doing audio. And it's not hugely difficult once you start getting to grips with it. Essentially, all you're doing is saying, I want my audio to start compressing at this point, and this is how it affects the voice. Cool. If we were recording whole albums, then we'd be going into a lot more detail about things like this, but we're not. We're just playing games. Hey. Right. Okay. So the next thing I would say is potentially important is something called a de-esser. Some people, when they are speaking into a microphone, have these things called sibilants and plosives. Plosives are dealt with pop shields, which are, you know, the circles with kind of fabric, and that goes over the top. What that does is, plosive is when you are saying a word like P and K, and things that are like harsh consonants. That is going to be dealt with in compression, but on a physical level, you are sending out a burst of air that's going to hit the, sorry, I'm covering up mic, that's not useful. You're going to be hitting the capsule of the mic. And when that happens, it creates a little bit of distortion. It makes a little bit of a kind of boom sound. And you don't really want that. That's why you'd use either a particular mic that's set up to deal with that, or a pop shield. Sibilance, on the other hand, is something you can't control in a physical way. Sibilance is where you are using S's and C's and things like that. Those can sometimes be a little bit harsh, certainly depending on the type of mic that you're using. So what de-essers do is they soften those S's. That's just, if you happen to have a plugin that does that, it's kind of a useful little thing. I don't believe, no. So doesn't look like OBS has a de-esser in there, but something you can do is there is a program that there are plenty of free plugins all over the place. The plugins that are produced by the people that create Reaper, which is a DAW or a digital audio workstation, there's a whole bunch of free ones that they do, and they're actually really good. So have a look into that if you want to. So de-essing can help a little bit with sibilance and stuff like that, but you can also do that in compression. So in multi-band compression particularly. Then a limiter. A limiter, again, super important if you don't want to do this thing called clipping. Now, clipping is where you get very loud and you start going into the red on your setup. So if you see here, this is my input. So my input is currently around about, -6. So that is the input that goes into my input over here. And it goes all the way through to the limiter. And the limiter is the last thing in my signal chain. And the limiter is stopping my volume from getting to a certain level. So if I took my limiter off, then what it might do, let me take that off for a moment. If I get very loud, okay, well, I've set my compressor up in a reasonable way. So between compression and limiting, it does a similar kind of thing, but a limiter is like a hard line stop. So a limiter, if it goes over the decibel level, it just stops it from going any higher. And that will stop you from getting clipping, which is a distortion that you get on audio. Let's see. Okay. So hopefully some of that stuff makes sense. I would totally advise looking at audio setups in that way every single time you do any kind of like streaming or audio recording as well. With streaming, you're doing it in real time. You have to have that in your signal chain from start to finish. So you get, there is a possibility you might have issues with stuff like latency. Latency is just the point where you're starting to talk yourself. You might have very, very slight delay in what you're monitoring. So, for example, I've got very, very slight latency in what me monitoring now, what I can hear. And if I turn this on to monitor, then basically I've got a very slight kind of sound. Puts me off like crazy. It's awful. I can't do it. So I can't monitor via my setup other than when I'm just checking my audio settings. Because it just does my head in. So covering audio. Way. Now, how do we set up an actual play stream? We've got our video set up, fine, and we've got our audio set up, fine. Next, what we would need to do is get the people that are going to be performing into a room together. It would be lovely if it was all physical, but we're doing this online. Get them into a room together, and then we can pretty much just work out exactly how all of this stuff is fit together. We can play that game, and then everybody goes to the pub. I don't know. So what I'm going to do, I have, let's see, how should we start this? Let's have a look at our friend. Let's look at Electron Capture first of all. Now, we all know and love this thing, which is Chrome. Okay, there you go. There's a few of the things that I look at. Now, Chrome, it's good in some ways in that it's very good for certain kind of web programs. So VDO Ninja, which is one of the things that we will be using, uses Chrome. Problem with Chrome is that it's a bit shit. Mic drop. Yes, I said it. Chrome has tendency to be what I believe they call bloated. So we use this other thing called Electron Capture. Hooray! Look, this, I can't remember the exact website for it, but if you type in Electron Capture, you will be able to see a... I'm going to do it now. I'm going to, on my other computer. Hang on. Oh, let's do Electron Capture. And oh, we got. This is just the home page. Oh, it's just Electron Capture. Go look for Electron Capture browser. It's out there, I swear. Yeah. So I think it is, you can get it from GitHub as well. Now, Electron Capture is quite useful in that what it does, it's a Chromium-based browser, which means it uses the Chrome setup, but it is very lightweight. And the reason we want very lightweight browsers so that when you have multiple people connecting to your stream, to your room, you're not using up all of your CPU and all of your whatever that Chrome decides to use, and it screws up your stream. So we use really lightweight setups, and hopefully everything works. So you see here, it doesn't even have a top bar. You've got to right click and look at stuff that way. That is your bar that you'd be using. Now I've set up a VDO Ninja account. It's not even an account, it's a room. So, okay, now this, my friends, this is the beginning of a VDO Ninja control center, if you will. How we get here, let's go back. How we get here, let's go to the homepage, in fact, is we go to VDO.Ninja, and you have this fella here. Here we go. So VDO Ninja, again, 100% free, no downloads, no personal data collection, no sign-in. It's super useful. What we need to do here is we create a room. Let's create a room, everybody. Hooray. Let's do John's great room. Oh, actually, I'll need to be underscore there. Okay, it does say it's an insecure room, so we could put a password here. But whenever I do 1, 2, 3, 4, I will do anytime somebody comes into that room, they'll need to type in that password. That's okay. So the guests will see the director, but not the other guests' video. We don't want that. That's no good. So the director will be performing as well, appearing in group scenes. Yeah, let's have that because I'm an egotist. Do not worry about codec. That's fine. So you'd have this kind of setup here. So this is your basic room that you want to do. So we enter the control room, the control center in the director's role. That is what we want to be doing. We don't want to be doing this one down the bottom here. So here we go. So this is the room that we have. Now, VDO Ninja is quite interesting in that you can really customize this thing. And it's kind of set up around the URL. The URL is, it's kind of an interesting setup in that each time you have an addition to the URL of a bit of text, it might actually change what is happening within that room. So I'll give you an example. I'm going to go to the guides here. Right, so this is the VDO Ninja guides. Let's go on to the... Okay, so quite nicely, they've got this little thing here called a cheat sheet, so it can just help you with stuff. So you've got, shows you everything that's going on. But I'll go through that in a second. Let's see. All right, yeah, here we go. Advanced options, URL parameters. So it's kind of set up around different URL parameters. Let's see. It's common parameters. Let's do that. So within a URL, everybody knows that this is a URL because we're all born after a certain date, and we're not four. I think again, 4-year-olds probably know what a URL is as well. Now, when we are creating a room, if you want to have particular things happening within your room, there are things that you can put into that URL. So it's things like and push and quality. And I'm not going to get into everything here because this is very, very in depth and it's probably going to confuse a lot of people. So just to give you an idea, that exists, but we're going to make this all nice and simple. So instead, I'm going to bring this over to here. And let me just do that for a sec. Okay, now, when you set up your room, you'll see this. You come into your room, and so we've got these two windows up the top. We've got invite a guest and capture a group scene. And then we've got guest 1, guest 2, guest 3, guest 4. What's going on here? So this is the link that you will be sending out to all of the people that you are wanting on your stream. But we don't just want this. We want to customize this. And the reason we want to customize this is because it makes life a lot easier for everybody concerned, really. So the first thing that you want to make sure that you're doing is to ensure that, yes, that is my room. And then you have a look through all of these things. You'll see that if there's something very specific that you want to have in there, then it's a good little element to put in. And I'll go through properly what all of the settings are within VDO Ninja when a person comes up. But I always have on Pro Audio mode. Pro Audio mode it's a little bit of a mixture of things that it does. It makes the signal stereo, firstly, and it also makes the quality of the audio as high as it can be. So the bitrate is a lot higher than a standard call. And then there's a couple of other things that I do, but I have to do that manually. And I'll show you why. Let me just move this down here for a moment. Right, so let's just suppose for a second that, John, I can do all of that in Zoom. Why am I doing this in VDO Ninja, you idiot? There's a reason. And it's not just that I'm an idiot. The reason is that it enables you to do a couple of really important things. Firstly, you can set up a room, and that room will permanently sit there. So if you have a room that is John's streaming for Actual Play 1, that room is going to stay. So this is my link here as a director. So when people come in, this is the director window. When people come in, they'll pop up in here. So this is my link that I have here. So we've got VDO Ninja. Yeah, there's a little question mark because that's what it does. I don't know if I am VDO Ninja. I'm director. Yes, this is John streaming for AP1. Brilliant. Now, you remember earlier it said you can write a password in there if you want to. If I wrote a password in there and I just sent out this link, if I just sent this out, you'll see here it doesn't have anything about passwords or anything like that. Whereas I do on this link. What I've actually done is I have decided that I'm going to put in and password equals, and that's my password. Once I do that, that means the password is always going to be in that link. I never have to put in for myself that password. And you can do that. See, I've got the performer one here. So we've got the name, and then it does this little bit of programming stuff there. Don't worry about that. And S, I'll go into that in a second. And then and password, blah, 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 blah. So you would put in physically, you'd write this in a text document and PW, whatever your password is. That means that whoever is coming in as a performer, they don't have to put that password in. You want to make sure that the performers have as little barriers as possible. So this is where the pro audio thing comes into it. I've got, if I'm on here, and I've gone pro audio mode, it's come up with and S. It also, and S is, hang on, where are you? There you go. And S is actually exactly the same thing as and pro audio. It just so happens to be an identical thing that they have set up, just with slightly different names. That's all. I have been putting in and pro audio and S as well, and they both do exactly the same thing. And S stands for and stereo, I believe. And you can even put in and stereo if you wanted to, but it does exactly the same thing as and pro audio. It raises the quality and it gives you a stereo signal. And I'll tell you why we do stereo signal in a moment. Then we've got and show director. So that is going to be my URL. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to go back to my home page. I'm going to put that in. There we go. So there we go. So I'm in the scene, or rather the setup that I have made for this room. So this is a room that exists currently. Now, with the performers, you're doing almost exactly the same thing. So you would have the invite a guest link. So you want to copy this and then place it into your Word document. But obviously, as before, so I think that goes up to there. So that's my link. Although I've got and S there. Whereas, yeah, there you go, and S. Okay, so we've copied that, but it's not the entirety of it, because we want to put in the password. So we want to do and password, so they don't come in and be like, I've got to type my password in, but I don't know it. That's just what you've set up beforehand. And then and push equals. And this is quite important for how we're going to set up our stream. So we've got and push equals, and it should be the name of the performer. Now, this serves a couple of different reasons. So let's say Ziggy, right? So we've got push and push Ziggy. This is the name of your performer. So we take this. What I'm going to do, I'm going to open up another window. I know. This is interesting and amazing stuff here. So I'm going to paste that in there. Let's make sure there's no space. So when you send this link over to a performer, and each of your performers will have different links. So we've got Ziggy on one and we've got Bill on the other. Ziggy has decided, right, I'm going to perform in this particular game today. So you've sent this link over to Ziggy. Ziggy's kind of come up here, and some of you guys have done this already. You've seen this screen. Join with a camera. Okay. Now, usually you would have maybe just like your webcam or something like that. I've got all of these cameras here, and I'll explain more in a second. We will do NDI video cam 1. Actually, I'll do video 2. There you go. We want your audio source. Although it's set up for stereo, I'd always suggest that to have the person that's coming in to do it as mono, because the audio source from the person should be mono. So it's just the one signal. More than likely, they're only ever going to be using one mic. I don't see them using a stereo mic. That would be quite an interesting way of setting up, but there we go. So even though you set it up as stereo, which there is a reason for, you want to click this as mono. Then obviously make sure your audio output is what you can hear. So what I'm actually going to do, I'm going to do no audio for myself, because it's going to start doing horrible things, because I've got a weird setup currently. I'll have that. I might just mute it. So let me do that. Okay. Now, this is the screen that people get when they come into the lobby, as it were, or this is what they actually see. So the more people that crop up, you're going to have more windows crop up as well. But me, as a director, I can see this. So this person's just popped up. Look, ID Ziggy. I don't know if you can see that. So Ziggy has turned up in this call. Let me do that. There you go. So it looks a bit dodgy here, doesn't it? This is a terrible, terrible. Oh, look at that. Isn't that shit? We don't want to stream that. Okay, so here's the first thing that VDO Ninja does that's brilliant compared to various other streaming setups. Although this quality here that I'm seeing is horrendous. Let me do that again. Whee, that's great. Although that's terrible, the stream that's actually going out to other people, this is the stream that I've got going out to other people currently. It's actually pretty decent. And you are able to take a solo view of each person, each performer. So what I'll explain what this means in terms of setting this up in here. So we've got my camera. So this is my direct camera that we've got going on here. Then we want to add, I'm not going to add a nested scene or anything. I'm just going to add a source. So my source is going to actually be browser. So rather than a camera or something like that, I'm going to add a browser, and I'm going to call it Ziggy because that's my performer that's coming in here. Now, as a browser, this comes up here. It just comes up with a kind of generic browser source. It's not a local file. Don't worry about your width and your height. It's not hugely important because you're just going to end up resizing it anyway. What we want to do is we want to go back to this window. Now, this particular window here, each time somebody comes in, it'll create a new window, then a new window, then a new window. Excuse me, it's my coffee. Oh, which reminds me, sorry. It's not cold yet. Right, so what we do here is we got copy solo view link. We copy that, and then I go over to here and I paste that. Now this is the specific view for that performer. We've put that into there. We've done control audio via OBS. That's super important as well. Everything else is fine. You don't need to go through anything else. It's all good. And then we press OK. Now what happens? Oh, wow. Just waiting for... Oh, there we go. Look at that. So there's a there's a minute delay. There's a minute delay because that's how the internet works. But you can see there that it was a little bit dodgy, first of all, and then it's cleared up. So even though on this screen here, even though that's awful, that's just me that's me referencing it, referencing the camera. Whereas actually within the stream, what it's doing is it's taking the highest possible stream quality from VDO Ninja directly into OBS. So OBS is referencing the highest possible quality stream. That's excellent because that means that I can then add in another person if I wanted to. So let's go to, where are we? Let's go to here. So I'm going to make another one of these. So we want, all right, we don't want Ziggy. We're going to have Bill now, right? Again, because this is a URL, doing things like spaces can cause little issues. So don't have any spaces in there. Feel free to do underscores, all the rest of it. So I'm going to copy that. I'm going to go back onto my another Electron Capture window. I'm going to select that, paste that. So we've got Bill, as you can see. Let me just take that space out there. That's all fine. So we're going to go. Let's join with a camera. Let's do video, NDI video, webcam 1. Yep. Okay, I'm going to start that. Let's see. So hopefully, there we go. Right, this is getting super confusing now. So this is my new window. This is me, Mark II. This is Bill, and this is Ziggy over here. Hello, Ziggy. Hello, Bill. Oh, yes. Lovely to meet you. I know the comedy. Eh? Right. Now we can see here that I have two individuals that are in my performance. So we've got Ziggy and we've got Bill. Ziggy and Bill are two totally separate performers, and essentially we can copy that solo link there. I can create another browser. Let's do Bill. Hooray, there we go. And control audio via OBS. So, and there we go. This is amazing. I've never had so many awesome people on the stream at once. So we see here though that Ziggy and Bill, they have their own camera setup. They also have their own audio setup. Now, I don't have my audio running through there right now, so what I might be able to do is, hey, that's what we want. That's what we want. There we go. I've moved him over to there. So what I'll do here, I'll do audio source. Let's do, there we go. Oh, now we're getting a bit of a reverb because you can hear my... although the people on the stream might be able to hear this, but you can hear a delay because there's two mics going through, but it's going through the delay of the internet, as it were. So you've got a little bit of latency going on there. But what it will do, it will show you when I unmute that again. So there we go. So Ziggy has got his own volume in there like that. Now, let's see. So we put a filter on there. So we have a couple of different filters. Audio filter. Chuck that on there. So I would have... Why is it taupe? Hooray, isotope. So I go down to where I have podcast and broadcast. I've got my Actual Play UK starter, and then it's all set up. So I've got an overview there. So I have my EQ, my dynamics, my de-esser, and my limiter. And then when somebody comes in and they can actually see and hear everything that's going on, then I can adjust whatever needs. So I'm going to turn it off because that's horrendous to listen to. Now that means that each person who is in this stream, they have their own video mix and their own audio mix. That means that you have an incredible amount of possibilities that you can kind of manipulate and do whatever you want, and essentially make your mix and your audio and your visuals as interesting as possible, and it will tidy things up immeasurably. But as a director of your video, let me find the right one. There we go. As a director of your video, what can you actually do? I'm going to go through this quickly. This is remarkably, it will actually sort out quite a few issues just through this kind of control panel, because there's a lot of different things that could go wrong within audio, and you can see what's happening on your player's side as well. So for example, this up here, this shows whether or not your player has good internet. If they are using a laptop, it will have a little battery, and it will tell you how much battery your player has. There have been plenty of times when I have been able to actually say to a performer, dude, your laptop's not plugged in, and it's like, oh, isn't it? Stuff like that is really, really useful. So going through here, what we see is we've got the window that is as you'd expect. You can do picture in picture. You can do blowing it up to huge size. But these things here, you can disable that video preview. So it essentially will stop what's going on. Really, it will just kind of click every now and again just to show that something is happening. That's just like a low quality, and then this is a high quality preview. You should have been able to see there that the quality of that is changing. I always just kind of keep it as a low quality, because that will keep your bandwidth down. When you've got like 6 people in this call, it makes things a lot harder for your bandwidth. As well as that, as a director, you can enable your own mic, and you can share screens and stuff like that too. But don't worry about that too much. You can send direct messages. I don't tend to like using the chat feature on here very much, because it doesn't. It's okay, you can chat, that's fine, but it doesn't allow very easy kind of notifications. It doesn't like ping or anything like that. So I tend to do that via Discord if there are players on that need to get my attention, because I'm going to be concentrating on something else. Don't worry about transfer. Hanging up, you can hang up somebody else if they want to. That's basically forcing a user to disconnect. Solo talk, highlight, stuff like that. Don't worry too much about things like this. It's going to be a little more in depth. You're not going to use it more than likely. You do have scene options here. Again, you're not going to use it. Additional controls. These can be kind of useful. You can, I haven't done a whole lot, but you can record in VDO Ninja with the performers. So you can record an individual stream. So for example, I could, if I put record local, what it's actually doing is it's recording your video, your performer's video onto the director's hard drive, or you can record remote, which is the performer's performance on the performer's hard drive. I've done it a tiny bit. It's still experimental. I wouldn't totally advise using it. You know, it's not completely set up. Think about other ways of doing it rather than going to this. This is more for streaming. You can mirror the video, so you can flip things around like that as well. The actual more important side of things are actually your audio settings and your video settings. Video settings, mostly, yeah, that really should be 30. So frame rates, for example, you can look at that. Don't worry about your height. Don't worry about your width. That will just be whatever you're getting in. If you start mucking around with that, it's going to start looking weird. Same with aspect ratio, really. It's going to be the same kind of thing. But interesting thing about this, you can see that my video is actually only coming in at 720 1280, which is not HD. Doesn't matter for this because I'm going to be a little box. I'm going to be a little person down here. 1080 by 1920, as we discussed last week, is HD. That's your big size. 720 is down a bit, but 720 for a video, it's fine, unless you really want to go like 4K and stuff like that. Yeah. Anyway, get rid of that. Audio settings. This I find incredibly useful. Ignore mic delay. Mic delay is for something where if your video's coming in very slightly later, you can set your mic to like milliseconds slightly later as well to match it. Hopefully, with the quality of internet that we all have nowadays, you shouldn't have problems like that. If you do, it's sometimes best just refresh your video or your audio, and you can do things like that down here. So this again, this is where it gets a bit scary. You can see, I know it's got this here, and we're used to seeing all of my stupid inputs and stuff, but this is actually what the performer's inputs are. So if your performer has got a Focusrite or a Behringer audio interface or just like a I don't know, a Blue Yeti mic or something, you can see what they have selected, and in fact you can change that. So you have the ability to actually click on there and say, well, actually, are you using the right mic? No, I can see that you're using the incorrect mic here. And, you know, obviously tell your performer, you've just forgotten to change your mic over. And again, you can refresh that. You've also got the output. I wouldn't worry too much about stuff like that. The input is worth noting because you can see if somebody's just made a little mistake or something like that. These other elements here are actually really, really good because for the most part, people's audio might suck a little bit. Going through, again, noise gate, that's stopping the lower noise floor kind of coming through. So it kind of cleans up the audio. Compression squishes everything a little bit. Auto gain control. Sometimes people can be a little bit hot. Their gain on the mic might be a little bit high. So auto gain control, what that will do is it will ride the fader, as they say. It will mean that your audio will, if they're particularly quiet, it'll bring it up a bit. But I find it useful for people who have very hot or very high level in audio. Like if their gain is high, then it can work to bring it down a bit and stop them from clipping a bit, because some people don't have the ability to control the gain on their mic, which is insane, but apparently that's the world we live in. So auto gain control, sometimes quite useful. Same with compressor in that respect. Sometimes if they're a little bit quiet, you can adjust the volume up here. So if they're quiet for everybody else, you can adjust that and it goes up and it does go down. And that is the kind of the mix for everybody that they are hearing. You also have the ability to, when you're monitoring, this is your monitor mix here. So that's your mix, personal. That's for everybody. And again, double clicking it just takes it back to the default. Okay, channel count. This means whether or not it's stereo or it's mono. Again, it should be one channel count because it will be in mono. But if it's in stereo, sometimes you might find that people are hearing a voice, hearing one of the performers only in one ear. So if that's the case, then just flick it down to one, and it should center it. Should make it down into one voice, rather than left or right. Echo cancellation. Echo cancellation. Have it off. Don't have the echo cancellation on if you can help it. Use echo cancellation in the very last kind of ditch. This is the only thing that I can do to this, and I have had to use it once or twice. What it actually does is it's designed so that if everyone's been on these Zoom calls, like where you're having a chat with somebody and they don't have earphones in or something, and you hear an echo of your own voice back, and it happens. What echo cancellation does, and usually it comes automatically on stuff like Zoom, they have automatic echo cancellation, and it's getting better and better. But what we're aiming for is like a pro audio quality bit of sound, right? We're wanting very high quality. Echo cancellation, it will remove the echo, but it also significantly drops the quality in the sound. So avoid it if you can at all times. Have people use headphones. Have people use earphones. If they have such loud earphones or headphones, then sometimes you get bleed. So if the headphone is quite close to the mic, sometimes you can kind of hear it, and then you might just have to talk to the performer and say, could you turn this down a bit? Could you adjust this? Sometimes compression or some things like that can actually increase the ability to hear this stuff, hear these problems. But, you know, echo cancellation, use it as a last resort. Noise suppression, on the other hand, is really useful. Now, noise gates and noise suppressions are very, very, very similar. But when you have a noise gate, what you're doing is you have your volume and it hits the gate and it won't go through because it's too low. So your fan noise or your room noise. But then when you speak, it's a louder volume and it goes over the gate. Okay? That's the basic concept of noise gating that we went through. Noise suppression, on the other hand, is it's filtering out the basic noise in the first place. So rather than it's kind of the volume of your voice is triggering that gate, noise suppression should take away that hiss or that hum or the fan noise. And it should allow your performer to be a little bit quieter if they need to, because that's an issue with noise gating. If they decide to perform and they're a little bit more like close up to the mic and they're a little bit more kind of whispery, sometimes they can disappear so the gate isn't triggered. But noise suppression should help that significantly. Popping that on does help. Now, one of the things about all of this is that all of those kind of effects that you are adding onto your voice or anything like that, that does filter through into your OBS channel, into your OBS setup here. So if I've put a noise gate or something like that on my call, it will still be active on this particular bit of video that I'm sending out. Definitely something to consider, because if you start putting stuff on there that is maybe less warranted, like if you've got a noise gate on there that is cutting things out, of doing this, that, and the other, and there's kind of issues, then you kind of want to take the path of not least resistance necessarily, more you want the quality to be winning out on the stream compared to the quality in a call. So it's balancing it. Decide what the issues are. Try and deal with them in the in VDO Ninja. If VDO Ninja is not helping too much, or at least you kind of clean it up a little bit, that's fine. And then you can come into the call itself. And if you want to, you can add some noise suppression here, for example. And again, something to bear in mind with the audio filters is that it's a chain. It is a signal chain again. So starting from the top, this is where your audio signal starts, then it's the noise suppression, then it's that, then it's whatever plugin. So it moves down the chain. So this plugin here, that's the last thing in the signal chain, and noise suppression here that I've just added in is the first thing in that chain. Okay. How are we all? Have I killed everybody yet? With boredom. Any questions actually so far? I'm just wondering. You will be heard in the chat. You can feel free to type them to me if you want to. Feel free to chuck me stuff. And yes, the Council of Johns will judge your fate. Okay. Let's see. Now, a couple of other little things. We spoke about kind of like routing and stuff like that a little bit beforehand. There are a couple of setups within OBS that I use that are quite useful. So firstly, let's go up to here. So obviously I've mentioned that I've got my loop deck, which allows me just to change scenes, but there are a couple of other little things as well. So there's something called NDI. Now NDI allows me to send or create multiple videos or video sources, should I say. So I've got NDI here. Now this is something that let me see again. Yeah, so it's let me go on here. I'm just going to search for NDI on OBS. This is a problem with having multiple keyboards, is you start typing in something and it's like, why is that not working? Oh, it's not even the right computer. Okay, NDI in OBS. Now, the lovely thing about OBS is because it's a open source. Yeah, that's fine. Because it's open source, that means that you have different people who create different plugins, and NDI enables you to place a plugin into your OBS setup that will allow you to create multiple video settings, or outputs. So, for example, you can transmit your video over to several different places. That can be quite useful because, to give you an example, if I am not using NDI here, let me go on to right. If I go onto here and I see here, I've got NDI webcam video 1, video 2, video 3, video 4, and to show you on here as well, I think it's that. Yeah, there we go. So when you install NDI and you run the webcam part of it, it allows you to choose your outputs or where you want your video to go, or actually even where you want your audio to go, which is quite nice. It's a protocol that allows you to take like a webcam feed and send it out to virtual outputs. So I've got 2 virtual outputs running here, taking from my Canon camera, because if, for example, I want to send out a video that is me, and I also want to start a virtual camera where I am sending out this particular, if I'm sending out my virtual camera of, there we go, so that's my program default, yes. Let's go in here. So I'll enable that. There we go. Calm that down. So this is my director's setup. So I want my video source. There we go. OBS virtual camera. Now you can see in here that I've set out my virtual camera from OBS. If I have OBS running and it's got my camera coming in, and I also try to send out my virtual camera so my performers can see the stream, and as well as that, if I'm performing or anything like that and I have another camera set up, it gets really annoyingly unwieldy, and this happens. Oh look, could not start video source. Typically this means the camera is already in use elsewhere. So you, in terms of setting things up for webcams, you can technically only use one camera source at any time. And that goes the same with audio sometimes. This is why we use stuff like virtual cameras and virtual audio. So I mentioned last time the virtual cable, which is cable, VB audio virtual cable. That is something you can use to send through audio to multiple different sources. So NDI is incredibly useful in that you can take your video, you can send it out as a performer, and you can also send your virtual camera out to people, and it just ends up being a lot more. It's a lot easier. It means that people can see stuff. It means that within a performance they can see, oh, I actually know that I'm streaming now, rather than you haven't got anything and then, oh look, I've decided to turn it into my stream, and then, oh, now we're back onto this. And it's like, people don't necessarily know that. So it's really good to give people feedback of actually what's going on. Right. What else? We also have things like scripts. Now, scripts are things within OBS. Again, this is all available on the Open Broadcast Software website, where you're able to just type in, oh wow, okay, there's just another resource or another plugin that I can use. So you've got tons of different plugins that you could put in there. So you've got scene switchers and stuff like that. I use this thing that is, it's like I said, it's just a script. It's called Auto Starter. All I've set this up to do is when I start OBS, it just starts. It opens up one of my Electron captures, and it opens up a Chrome browser as well. You can do other things as well. It's just really useful because, like, once you start having to open up 400 different programs to begin your OBS session, then you're doing your head in, and it's not worth it. No one needs that kind of stress in their life, right? So, Auto Starter, it's quite a useful little thing. I also have something called Audio Monitor. So when I'm starting my intro, I actually have that forwarding via Audio Monitor to my virtual cable, which is then being sent to the director's audio. So the way that I would set up, where are we again? There we go. So I might have, if I'm performing, for example, or if I'm just running a stream, I will have my virtual camera. So this is my director's setup here. So I am the director. This will be my virtual camera. The audio for this will be a virtual cable, which might be some audio that is on here, which is on OBS, so like a bit of video or something like that. In other words, this. So that is then being sent via my audio source, and that'll be cable. So that'll be that. And then everybody within that stream who is performing will be able to hear all of that as well. So again, it enables that depth of just like listening to stuff. It enables people to feel more involved in what's going on. Because to be honest with you, having something that is just really like distant from people, it's not great. You know, you want people to be involved. You want to raise that emotion, and that goes even more so for your performers. You want to raise them up. You want to raise up all of the other people within that stream. So them hearing audio is an incredibly powerful thing to be able to do. Okay, so that's most of it. That's most of like all of this stuff. There is a fair amount, I know, to kind of understand with regards to VDO Ninja. Something else I'll say about VDO Ninja. Looks amazing. Okay, so we've got my other call here that I've just jumped off of, but we want that. Yes, okay. So I'm just going to open that again. So let me just go back onto there. Let's start that. No, I don't want it. I want that. Okay, there we go. Was that Ziggy that I jumped onto, or was it the other one? I think it might have been Ziggy. Okay, basically, yeah, it was. Basically, the brilliant thing about VDO Ninja is that if I decide, or if I have an internet issue, oh look, I've just dropped, curses. So my camera feed has disappeared here, but my placed video stays exactly where it originally was. And that's remarkably powerful, because in something like any kind of Zoom call or anything like that, what you find is that you have to say, all right, this is the part of my screen that I'm using for one player, and then this is another part of my screen that I'm using for another player, and it's awful, and it's unwieldy, and it means that if somebody drops off, you've got to sort your entire screen out again. Whereas with this, someone drops off, doesn't matter. They come back, they're in exactly the same position. You don't have to muck around with it. And this is a major reason why you also have names on there. Because once you've got a name on the top, once you have Bill, then that is the name that is going to be used all the time. So if I have somebody who is a person who is like a regular performer, they can come in, use exactly the same setup, and then just use that same link each time. I don't have to send them a new link. I don't have to set up their system anymore. I can have that completely in here. I've set up such and such a person's name in here as Bill. Bill can then be always used as a scene, and their audio and their visual is always going to be the same if they're in exactly the same situation. That means that each time that we're doing a performance, each time that we're going live, I don't have to set up again and again and again and again. It's always the same. And that is the crux of all of this. You do not want to be doing this over and over again. What you want to do is you want to have very easy, streamlined way to send a link out to somebody, have them come in, and then you set all of this stuff up initially, and then each time they decide to come in again, and we've had performers come in multiple times now, it means that I can just set this up. I've got my borders set up, I've got everything set up already, and that's it. So let me just go to studio mode. So I know that I can have the name, oh, let's Bobby again, and my camera set up. So thing, yeah, that's fine. So, you know, it means that I can just, you know, set these things up, and then if it all disappears again, then I don't have to worry about the setup for the next time that somebody is like coming onto the stream. It means it's all there and I'm done. So that camera can go, and then it'll come back and it will be exactly the same setup. All you need to do is potentially change the name of the, you know, it won't be the performer necessarily, it'll be the character or something like that. That's it. One last thing I will say about all of this is when you are setting up all of these windows, all of these inputs and outputs, and okay, so you've got performers. What within actual play, because we've got so many different people coming in, I end up with like John Camera, somebody else, such and such. Like you'll set up these nested scenes for a lot of different people. The thing is that technically they are always kind of active or open. So firstly, make sure that anybody with a link isn't trying to come into the call. Otherwise, say if I've told Ziggy, right, Ziggy, you're not performing next week, but we've got a whole load of new people. But Ziggy's like, yeah, I'm just going to go onto this link at this time. They will come into not the stream, but the VDO Ninja call. That's if you set it up. So Ziggy suddenly appears there, and it's like, Ziggy, what are you doing, mate? Obviously, you don't want to do that. So bear that in mind. Make sure people know that they shouldn't be jumping onto any old stream. Secondly, I mean, there's a reason to have different like rooms and things like that if you want to. It's just a lot more work. The other thing I would say is that when you are doing your streams, you want to try and keep your CPU down. So it actually gives you a CPU here. So I'm using like 3.3% at the moment. The more effects and the more plugins and the more stuff and the more windows you have open and all of this kind of stuff, it's going to potentially slow down your machine very slightly. So be really careful about adding in tons of people. The way that I do this now is that I have, you'll see here, I've got all of these. These are different games that have gone on, but I have something here that's like all casts. So I have a particular setup where for every single person that has appeared, I have a nested scene. So I've got nested scene for Ziggy and a nested scene for Bill. And within those nested scenes, all of their stuff is set up. You've got all of the visual and the audio plugins that are going on there. But once you have decided all of these people are the right people that I am using within this game, you then have the opportunity to delete all of the other ones. Because, like, set up a new scene, set up a new collection, should I say? So you've got a new collection, and that, so you duplicate it essentially. So you do that. And it will keep all of your cast there for all casts, duplicate it, and then set up something else. You know, just set up a new game or whatever. That way, then it shouldn't, well, hopefully, won't be too much stress for you at the end of the day. I think that's it for the moment. I hope that makes sense. Guys, you got any questions or anything like that for me?
I don't think so. That was very comprehensive. Thank you, John.
That's all right. I know it's, the thing is, there's a whole load of like different little elements and things like that. As far as I'm concerned, like, this is sort of the last bit in terms of how to put together an actual play using like VDO Ninja and incorporating that into OBS. Obviously, I will be doing some stuff that's very specifically actual play UK, but that'll be more of like a private tutorial kind of thing. But yeah, anything that you can think of that I've not really covered and is like maybe confusing, or I've gone into something of not enough detail or too much detail, God stop me, do let me know, because as I said, this is it's a big thing. It can be difficult to kind of comprehend almost. So yeah, let me know. Especially as this is going in YouTube, so let me know in the comments. Other than that, I think we're sorted. All good? Everyone good? Happy? Brilliant. All right then. Well, thank you for joining me once again, doing one of these weird little tutorials or long tutorials. Nice. Yes, next time I'll probably show you how to whittle a chair or something. I don't know how to whittle chairs. Could someone show me how to whittle a chair? That'd be good. Cool. All right. That's it. Bye.